Hello and welcome to Powersights podcast series brought to you by PowerView. In this show, we talk to great minds from various industries to share their insights and experiences with cutting edge digital technologies. We also deep dive into latest trends, challenges, developments in the field of digital transformation, digital technologies, AI, and more, and find out how they are impacting businesses and industries around the world. I'm your host, Deepak, and together with my co host, Divesh, we welcome you.
Hello.
So, now moving on to our today's guest. She's a visionary entrepreneur, designer, and founder of several ventures that combine fashion and technology. She is the creator of Digital Fashion Week New York, a groundbreaking event that reimagines how we experience fashion in the digital age. She's also the founder of ThunderLily, a design software that allows you to create your own fashion collections in the virtual space. And that's not all. She has been in the fashion industry for the last 20 years, developing tools, strategies, platforms that challenge the status quo and make a positive impact on the world. She has even designed some amazing robotic dresses that have been showcased at New York Fashion Week. So, without wasting a second more, let me welcome Clare Tattersall to Powersights podcast. Claire, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here.
So, we are going to talk about some really amazing things, and we are going to focus on how digital technologies can bring in efficiency, transparency to the design process, the manufacturing process. But before we go there, can you tell us about a bit about your background and how you got interested in fashion design and technology?
So I really entered fashion technology officially in 2009 when I launched ThunderLily that you mentioned before. So it was a vertical virtual design platform where you could do your designing online and then you could put it on the website for sale. And it was on demand manufacturing as well. So our goal was sketch to launch in 24 hours at zero cost. So no money changed hands until somebody actually bought one of your designs and ordered it to be made. Um, and so that was since 2009. I've also been making, as you said, wearable technology, providing a lot of outreach with that. So making functional, wearable robotic dresses for exhibitions, for runway shows, for talks, really conversation starters about how fashion can contribute to the diversity and inclusivity conversation. And a passion of mine as well is to get more girls and young women involved in technology as a creative tool. And I launched Digital Fashion Week in 2020. Um, Obviously, when we were all in lockdown, the industry began to really realize how important technology was for them. So I wanted to provide a platform where we could bring together innovators and creatives at the same time and really showcase all the change and the possibilities that were happening.
That's a really long journey, and you're right. In 2020, we realized how important technology is for the whole industry because the pandemic did teach us a lot of things. So it's almost 2 decades. So how have you seen the apparel industry evolve in terms of the design, the manufacturing, and what role has technology specifically played in this evolution?
Yeah, so traditionally the fashion industry is, especially in the West, is really it's a bit of a dinosaur industry. There hasn't been a revolution since the sewing machine was invented. Um, a lot of work, certainly locally at the factories and producers in New York here. Um, it's the pattern design is done with pen and paper still. Um, Somewhat a lot in house also. So technology has obviously contributed to more efficiency in the design process. We know that this has absolutely escalated in the past 3 years as well. But it was in these terms, in terms of adoption, it's been a slow trickle. In terms of the innovators coming into the space, innovators have always been there, but they haven't had the limelight in the way that they really do have today. There's a lot of key players. We know companies like Lectra and Browseware and Chloe and its like original edition of Marvelous. They've been here for decades. They've been here for a long time, and there has been a certain level of adoption. Obviously, those companies grew to a very large place, but really widespread adoption and understanding hasn't been on the table until the last really few years. But so it was a lot of looking at the efficiency and effectiveness as well, obviously contributing very much to the sustainability conversation. How can we ship less samples? How can we be more financially efficient here as well? How can we reduce waste? All of that is really answered by designing in the virtual space. So that is, I would really say it's design tools that are at the root of this. However, there obviously are, I do not want to neglect like PLM systems, supply chains, etc. But it is the design tools that are sort of at the core of this.
So if you had to, so you mentioned design tools as a major influence here. You Are there any other technologies? In fact, you kind of answered that it has been a dinosaur in a lot of ways, and now things are changing. So one of the things was, you are also the founder of the Drip, a digital fashion boutique, right? So could you explain what is digital fashion and how does it work? Because I am sure a lot of our listeners know fashion, but digital fashion is relatively a new term for a lot of people.
Right. So let me start with telling you what we do at the Drip, and then we'll talk about the bigger picture. So the Drip is it's a digital fashion marketplace. Each of our designers brings their own unlockable content to this. So amazing talent. They put their designs for sale as NFTs on the Drip. Some things are also non-NFTs as well. We have a partnership with Ready Player Me. You can dress your avatar. But you can get your clothes for virtual try-on. Sometimes it is digital fashion as artwork. You can unlock the original files as well, the FBX files. Which you can use in some ways now, but you will be able to use a lot more in the future. A lot of digital fashion, it's sort of in many ways, it is an investment in the future when you're buying the raw files, but there are many ways you can use it now. Photo dressing has been the original way. You dress your photo with your new garment. So you can have one photo, many outfits in there. But this technology is evolving so fast. We have companies like 010 who do amazing virtual try-on. You can dress your avatar, as we said before. So there's many ways that you can download it to either wear in real time or wear on a photo or wear on your avatar. So what we're looking at with digital fashion is basically the tool that we talked about before. Everything has emerged from a design tool to enable efficiency. But when you put tools in the hands of creatives, they take it and they make something new. So we have this explosion of digital fashion. However, we still need to really look at the back end of this. What is the the value to the traditional and the physical fashion industry. It is about efficiency and effectiveness. It is about a lower impact on the environment. But we also now have the opportunity to take all that work that a designer has done for those reasons and create a digital twin. So you can also make the same clothing and sell the virtual version that people can wear in different ways. You can also make the virtual version have additional features. For example, it's got bubbles coming out of it. It's got moving pictures on it. We've seen sneakers with flames. So you can take the digital version and you can make it do things that it really cannot do in the physical world. So for a brand, you have the potential to really expand your use of a single design that you've made. You can also use it to try out an idea. If people buy your virtual version first, then maybe they realize, oh, this is actually something I really want in my physical wardrobe, and they can buy it later. Also, all this technology that we're looking at with the virtual try-on is feeding back to the point of sale and really making that so much more efficient. So the virtual try-on that we see and we can enjoy, and we can put videos on social media of ourselves, etc., that has a real value to the traditional industry as well. Because when we try things on with a virtual mirror and we know how it's going to look on us, we're more inclined to actually buy it. It's not just going to sit in your shopping cart. It's actually going to lead to conversions. And it's reducing the number of returns as well. So the number, it probably shifts a lot, but the returns are being reduced up to 60%. That's really significant. That has huge value to the bottom line and to the planet as well. Those things are not ending up so fast in landfill. We're not wasting our resources, and brands are more likely to actually receive more profit from any of their sales because they're dealing with a lot less returns. So there is significant value to the technology that's being developed for digital fashion and wearables.
So three key things which I really liked is, one is definitely you can put out your designs out there, gauge the demand without actually going into the whole production cycle. That's a huge cost saving and, a sort of way to test the market out there. Definitely the reduction in returns. I am sure we spoke to somebody in one of our podcast sessions. He was actually working with a company to create a solution where he could reduce those returns. So definitely a huge challenge for the apparel businesses. And sustainability, I am sure, because of all this process, less waste is out there. So that would be a huge boon to the overall, in fact, the overall planet, not just the industry at this point of time. Amazing.
Yeah, it's really exciting. When you look at, there's a certain amount of hype that's around digital fashion, but that hype is exciting. That's the marketing. And what we need to look at is what is the real value underneath all of the hype that we can actually bring in terms of transformation to the traditional fashion industry and move it into the future. So it is a very, very exciting time that we're in right now.
So one of the topics that during our discussion you looked very passionate about was blockchain technology, like how blockchain can bring efficiency and transparency to the manufacturing and design process. So for our listeners, like who may not be familiar with blockchain as a whole as a technology, they might have heard as a terminology, but they might not be aware like how can blockchain really contribute to the apparel industry. So can you explain how it works, how it can actually contribute to the apparel?
Right. So I'll give you a very boiled down, very simple explanation of this. So blockchain, for anybody who doesn't know what it is right now, is it's simply a digital ledger. If you really think about it, if you think about a few hundred years ago, in a marketplace, you had a little old man who was sitting there, who was taking notes of everything that was sold, everything that changed hands, from this person to this person, how much it was, and then something else was sold on to somebody else, and then that person sold it on to a third person, and that was all being written down in this little book. So that's essentially what the blockchain is. It's a digital version of that. It's keeping a virtual record of every step, every exchange, every process along a journey. So this is of huge value to the fashion industry for many reasons. If you look at supply chain technology, how can you have a record of where everything is? How does this reflect on transparency? I mean, for the consumer to be able to look and to see where fabrics were sourced, what factories garments were made in, and to understand how that factory can treat their workers. You can look up this information. When you can see where everything happened, then it's going to make the fashion industry a lot more conscious and a lot more aware of
Ethical.
what's happening. It's both scary and exciting. So in terms of data as well, for any brands, especially if we're really looking at big brands as well, to have all the data of the process in one single record as well, it's so much more efficient and effective in that way. So looking at the supply chain, but that's a part of the story as well. Once that garment and a digital twin is made of it, once that garment is on the blockchain, you can continue as well to see what happens to that garment in its future life as well. What happens? Does it change hands? Is it sold to somebody else? So what is the real life cycle of a garment? Where's it going? And we have a lot of sustainability issues again that we can really address here. So it's transformative for the fashion industry.
So one of the ideas which just came to my mind is when you were talking about this whole tracking and tracing pieces, it could be used even post an apparel is purchased, specifically when you could reuse and recycle it. So I believe that would be a huge piece where this could contribute.
Right. So something I think will be the turning point in the fashion industry is the inclusion of NFC chips in clothes. So that's near field communications. So like when you tap on something, you tap to pay with your phone or anything. So this is near field communication. So when we have the chips in clothes, you'll be able to see on your phone all this data and this information about a piece of clothing. And it will also open up opportunities for a brand to continue marketing to the consumer. For the luxury industry, this will be a chip that authenticates the garment. So you know that it's actually a Gucci or a Chanel or a Balenciaga item. So, there are just enormous possibilities and change that's really afoot. So I think once we really adopt the process of having NFC chips in clothes, it's going to change our understanding of NFTs and really the blockchain and the potential for this. So everything really from the initial concept and the first steps of supply chain until the end of the garment, and really beyond that as well, that you can continue to communicate with the owner of the garment and market to them. Enormous value for a brand in many ways.
Thank you for explaining the blockchain in very simple terms. I mean, it's one of those concepts which people like to throw around, but it's very difficult to grasp how it works and how do you actually use it for your business. And I'm just, and this is one of my logical deductions from whatever I'm reading. A lot of businesses they may not need a lot of these tech in the phase they are in, but definitely there are certain technologies they could use, which could be table stakes at this point of time. For some of the businesses, maybe it could be an e-commerce platform. For some of the businesses, it could be a simple chatbot. So, what are those technologies which are so useful or extremely relevant for the apparel industry that they should have it at this point of time, or something they should have maybe had 2 or 3 years before, and they're already delayed in that case? Are there any specific technologies or use cases you could talk about?
So that's a really interesting topic. I think every brand should make its unique decisions, the same as you do about any other process or action or business decision. It's about looking at your business model and what is your business plan? Where do you want your business to go? I think a lot of technology, how we can approach what our choices are, is by really revisiting your business plan and looking at what are the gaps, what have you not achieved, and what could be improved. There is not a one-stop solution for anybody at all. There is something that is possible for every brand, from the individual who is selling direct to their local community, perhaps in a marketplace or something like that, to a global brand that their sales are billions a year. There is something that everybody can do to improve and to change, and technology is offering us these solutions. I think as humans, we have a moral responsibility to look at how can we make our planet a better place. The fashion industry is really a terrible polluter. And I think we can look at how technology can really help us be kinder to our planet, so we can be here for longer. How we can improve our relationship with our customer as well. How can we make the product better for the customer? And how can we continue the relationship with them? I think at the end of the day, technology has to facilitate or improve human experiences. So we can put those in certain categories, sustainability, communications, or wearability in terms of fashion. So, it really is about having a unique approach. You can use technology as well to be your differentiating factor. There are technologies that are available, but also how do you integrate those in your business? So a small use case scenario, we have one jewelry designer who is on our platform, and she is bringing out jewelry with that it opens up. So the brand is Angelescu, and it opens up, and she's got NFC chips in there as well. So you can learn about the item. You can see where everything was sourced, how it was made. You can provide really a rich experience for your consumers. And then you can continue to give them further offers or other digital assets. You can also, once you're communicating with your consumer as well, you can invite them to events through their garments. Like if you've bought this luxury dress, then you have access to, special gala events, etc. And only people who've bought in at the very high level can access certain events. So it's really, you're tokenizing the garment as well. There's just so many ways that you can do something, and it's really up to you to be creative and to look at your business model. What does your consumer want? And what is good for your brand, and how you can use technology to reach your goals.
Yeah, I like that example where you could actually trace and find out everything about that product via the technology. And like I said, it is definitely fascinating. I'm still going up, a layer below, or you may say a more primitive to this, where I see companies struggling with something as simple as going online, or maybe using technology to maybe automate a few pieces. And the reason I am saying that, because that's one of the things which we have seen and constantly do. And some of these processes are as simple as maybe automating their support using a chatbot, or maybe helping them go online by helping them list their products in an attractive way on the online store. So like you said, the industry is definitely at a piece where you may call them a dinosaur. And this, from this to going to something like NFC or blockchain, is a huge jump. If somebody wants to get started but not at the level that maybe the blockchain, maybe something much more simpler, what would you suggest them? How do you suggest them to go about it?
So my suggestion, and I just want to say it might not be the right suggestion for everybody, but I think looking at how you're going to design using digital tools. Once you learn how to design your product digitally, there are so many opportunities. Maybe it's just making your design process more efficient. You create your model, you can adapt that model in the future. You don't have to go back to scratch every time. So every season, you can make smaller adjustments to something and bring out a new updated line. So creating your prototype, and your pattern, and going from there is a great place to start for anybody. And once you've really accomplished that, you can look at ways that then you can use that digital asset in the future. But I think creating something that is going to make your business model more efficient, more reusable, it's going to save you time, and hopefully it's going to save you money and resources. I think that's an excellent place to start.
So recently we published one of the posts where our research, from global data, showed that retailers are more frequently adopting magic mirrors as the starting point. Like many retailers are adopting magic mirrors and implementing at their stores to showcase and to improve the customer experience at more physical level and virtual level as well. So how do you see that trend as a starting point for retailers?
So I think magic mirrors are absolutely amazing in terms of the point of sale. You're engaging people with a product. You're seeing from an objective point of view how something looks on you as well. Um, so yeah, I think it's a fantastic place to start. It's fun, it's exciting. Essentially this is in many cases it's augmented reality. And I think augmented reality is a wonderful place for the fashion industry to be. Our planet is a beautiful place. Our world is wonderful. Our lives are great. How do we augment that with creativity? Um, so I think mirrors, getting people to try something on, to look at how it works on them, to have fun and be engaging. it's, yeah, hugely successful.
Definitely. So, where do you see the fashion technology evolving in the future? What are some of the opportunities or trends that you foresee in the maybe in the next 5 years for the fashion industry, or maybe 10 years?
So 10 years is, honestly, I don't think we can really imagine where we're going. 5 years is a really, really long time. If you think 5 years ago, the entire industry in our lives were in a very, very, very different place. So change is so rapid. When I'm organizing Digital Fashion Week, I can only plan season to season for the simple reason that the technology is changing so fast. If you think, it was really in January that AI became such a hot topic of conversation. So during our February fashion weeks, a lot of the thought leadership panel discussions came back to topics of AI. It's on the top of everybody's minds right now. What are the possibilities? What are the dangers? What are the concerns, the challenges, and the amazing outcomes? What can we do with something, and what do we need to be aware of? So 5 years is a really, really long time. Um, I can tell you my sort of dream scenario and
We could
vision.
reduce it to maybe a year if that helps.
Right. So in a year, we can really look at virtual try-on absolutely becoming the norm, using augmented reality for any kind of sales. I think for accessories, augmented reality is being used by a huge number of brands. I don't know really why it's not being used by anybody, by everybody. You know, trying on makeup, trying on glasses, trying on jewelry. That technology is in such a good place right now. It really boosts sales when people can try something on. They have a better idea, and they're much, much more inclined to actually make the purchase. So we're going to really see the mass adoption of trying on technology, augmented reality. Seeing how furniture looks in your room before you buy it. I find I really struggle when a brand is not offering augmented reality for furniture. And from a personal experience, there are so many times that I've decided not to buy something because I just don't really know how it's going to fit or look or work with anything. So it gives you so many more opportunities to play and try and increase the opportunities of a sale actually happening. So I think that is a core place where we're really going to evolve. Avatars, the production of avatars, the evolution of avatars is evolving at such a rate. I talked about Ready Player Me before, and their avatars and how they're evolving, more diversity of body types, etc. So you can really find an avatar that's going to identify who you are as well. Epic Games and Unreal Engine, with their metahuman, it's just photorealistically absolutely amazing. So we're going to be using avatars more and more in our lives instead of maybe being on Zoom or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams, whatever people are using. I think we're going to see avatars more and more involved in that, and we need to dress our avatars as well. So how do we have clothes for them and jewelry for them? I think, at the moment, this might seem slightly futuristic to some people, but I think within a year, we're going to feel it's very, very normal. We can look back on this conversation and it will seem very dated because it's going to be so normalized. Similarly, the metaverse, it's an extension of our very 2D communications. Instead of FaceTime and Zoom, all these business meetings, it makes so much sense to have them in the metaverse. We can get together in a much richer, deeper, more evolved way. Cultural events as well in the metaverse. How do you bring in musicians and artists and bring people in from around the world? And again, this is where we need to be dressed. We need to express ourselves as much in the virtual world as we do in the physical world. Fashion is about creating an identity. So it's a very, very real part of the conversation. And it brings me back to your earlier question about what should a designer do? Like learn how to create digital assets. The in the gaming industry, an enormous industry, it's it's been around for more than 2 decades. The the quality of the worlds and the environments in the gaming industry are so exquisite and so detailed. There is a market for designers to create digital assets that can be used by game developers and by players in the gaming industry. This should not be overlooked at all. Enormous opportunity in there. And as well as, the youth who are probably the highest percentage of gamers in Gen Z, they're growing up and they're going to be moving from spending their parents' money to spending their own money as well. So enormous, enormous opportunity in here.
Definitely the gamer piece, the games piece is something I can relate to. My previous stint was with a tech startup which used to create game based learning. We used to create game based learning there, and as part of the research and as part of the ideation, while we were thinking of so many concepts, how do you level up? How do you add gamification to it? One of the pieces which we would actively discuss was the add-ons. How do you change avatars? How do you when you level up? How do you change the whole powers, the abilities? And while in the corporate learning sector, we had limitations, but it was so much fun to just discuss them as part of ideas.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And that is so valuable. Ideas, talking about it, discussing it. If we don't do that, things are unlikely to actually happen. So yeah, like looking at the possibilities and talking about them, and then we can make things actually happen. But yeah, and going back to your question, this isn't far in the future. This is really it is happening now, but it's going to be happening a lot more within a year as well. The gaming industry is very, very influential on the fashion industry.
So, like taking this entire point forward, I have a question from the consumer's perspective as well and from a brand's perspective as well. Like, do you think, like within a year, consumers will start expecting brands to release like virtual versions of the clothes ahead of releasing the physical versions? Like, they would start expecting brands like they want to try on those virtual versions first before they buy or purchase the physical versions. And do you think that brands will be able to adapt to these changes very quickly? And what might be the barriers or challenges they might face in adopting these two trends as well?
Right. I think the biggest barrier is knowing where to start. And that's, you asked this question in before. So um in a totally different way, but I think it brings us back to the same answer. Like learn or work with a team who can create the digital assets, who can bring your design process into the virtual space. It's great for you as a brand, but it's really good for your consumer as well. So in order to achieve so many of these other goals, it is really starting with the design process.
Right. So while creating and while streamlining, design tools seem to be one of the huge they seem to have a huge impact on how do you streamline and bring in efficiency. Are there any other technologies that you think would have the same impact, not just in the production, but I am talking more about the piece where the reuse or refurbishing of apparel, because we spoke about the waste and how do you reduce it. I'm sure that's a huge question in front of the whole apparel industry.
Right. So, there is a huge movement towards swapping clothes. You've got the Global Fashion Exchange that it's a worldwide organization that holds events where people swap clothes, especially high-end fashion. There are resale markets that are hugely popular and very successful as well, receiving a lot of investment. So um, recycling, upcycling, resale. Um, yeah, I think we're just going to see so much of that. I think Gen Z, they really look at thrifting and resale and buying digital assets more than buying new goods. And as brands, we need to really look at what these trends are as well. What does our consumer want? We can be very, very stuck in the way that we've always done things and say, well, this is successful. Why do I really need to change? There's a big learning curve. How do I overcome that? Um, it is difficult to change. It isn't easy, but you have to find the way. And Divyesh, this is really what you were asking me as well. The barriers will be very individual. Knowing where to start is a challenge, and you will come up against difficulties and hurdles, and you'll feel stuck. But set your goals and make baby steps as well. Really, one thing at a time. Don't try and do everything. Don't try and just jump on the bandwagon because that's what everybody else is doing. Like, oh, I need to build my white label metaverse environment. Really, is that what is actually beneficial to you as a brand? Start small. Think about what's going to help your consumer. How can you connect in a more real and engaging way with them? It's all about the consumer at the end of the day and how you bring value to them. That's what your brand is. A brand is a promise to deliver. So it's really looking at the value that you can provide to people.
So one last one, any specific technologies or any specific use cases that you would love to work on or you are actually working on right now, which is really exciting and something which you think that the world should know about.
Yeah, I mean, two things I'm super excited about are augmented reality and the possibilities for that. With virtual try-on for using fashion as storytelling in different ways in your life. But I think also NFC chips in clothing, I think is going to be transformative for the fashion industry, for the supply chain, for the point of sale, and for continued marketing. It's absolutely going to revolutionize how brands can be efficient and can market and prove authenticity as well. It's going to provide us data that we can really analyze. It will provide data in terms of our relations with our consumer as well. Who is buying, how something is changing hands, if it's changing hands. Um, so many opportunities from these two items, and I keep coming back to these same things as well. Of course, we've got artificial intelligence, which is so much the hot topic at the moment. Our governments are discussing whether there should be regulation. We're looking at what's the possibility of deep fakes that's coming out of that. But we also need to look at what is the possibility here for efficiency, for increased creativity. How can we use artificial intelligence to improve our pipelines? And a lot of people have been doing that all this time. There's a lot of good that can come from AI. There's a lot of the very boring work that we can take out of everything. For designers, if we look at it in a very creative place, how do you create mood boards as well, which doesn't necessarily reflect your creativity as a designer? You're doing the design, um, you're really doing the design, but your client needs mood boards. That's something you can just put together with AI. It's so much faster. You can get rid of so many boring tasks and inefficient tasks with it. So we're going to see more and more AI in terms of generating new ideas, products. We're going to have a lot that we contend a lot of questions about the good, the bad, and the ugly with it. But we're also really going to see how it can be used creatively and efficiency wise too. So it's something we cannot ignore. Whether you like it or you hate it, it's here, and we need to choose to use it in the right.
Yeah, that's an interesting. These are interesting times to live in, where you have no clue what the next day is going to bring in terms of technologies or some new fascinating use cases.
Right,
So
right.
that's
And
all
every few
from
months we're really going through a sort of a tech revolution in this way.
yeah. So that's all from us, Claire. Thank you for joining us. And but before we end this session, I would like you to introduce yourselves to our users on what you do, where you do you think you can help them in specific use cases or specific problems. So if there's anybody who's listening to this and want to reach out to you at some point for any help, how do they do that?
Sure. So digitalfashionweek.nyc is the website. You can also find me, Clare Tattersall, on LinkedIn, where I'm very active. Instagram, Digital Fashion Week. Digital Fashion Week NYC, all in one. Um, Best way to reach out. I love welcoming innovators and creatives onto our platform for events, which in September it's going to be New York, London, Paris, and possibly beyond there as well. We are expanding continuously because creativity and innovation is everywhere. So opening up in new, exciting cities. We also offer consulting about technology as well, and we have our our digital fashion marketplace, which is the drip.boutique.
Great. So thank you, Claire. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, people, for listening this piece, and we'll soon come back to you with a new fascinating episode with a new expert all about tech and how they are impacting the world around us. Thank you, people.